everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today I have an announcement about the March Through History Readathon. So this is going to be our 4th year doing the March Through History Readathon. I went back and checked my channel to see how many times we've done this, and I think this is the 4th year for the March Through History Readathon. This year, the theme for the readathon is going to be Women in History. So all month long, throughout the entire month of March, we are going to be reading about historical fiction and history books pertaining to women. So I'm very excited to share the prompts with you. I've created 25 prompts. So we have an entire bingo board of prompts to do. So if you're ambitious, you can go ahead and try to do all 25 of them. If you are a little bit less ambitious or you just want to be reasonable, you can just aim to hit bingo by getting 5 in a row in whatever direction you choose. Let me run through the prompts and we'll talk about each one. So the first prompt is to read a biography or autobiography. Read a biography or autobiography about a cool woman in history. The next prompt is to read a book with a woman or women on the cover. There seems to be a plethora of these. I don't think you're going to have a hard time finding one because, I want to say 90% of the more recently published historical fiction has a woman on the cover. Next prompt is to read a book written by a woman of color. Again, self-explanatory. Read a book about women in science. So there are so many great books that will fit this prompt, but also the cool thing about this prompt is it will work as well for the Build Your Library Reading Challenge. If you're doing that, there's a similar prompt in that challenge. So you can double up. You can count the same book for both. The next prompt is to read a book about women at war. So this could be women nurses. This could be about women who dressed as men to fight in battle. This could be about women who were spies during war, whatever you want to read about. The next prompt is to read a graphic novel. I love historical graphic novels. There are so many really good ones. So I'm gonna have recommendations in another video, so I'm not gonna go into detail here with that, but there's some really great historical graphic novels. It's one of my favorite things. Read a middle grade. Again, so many good middle grade novels that are historical, and because the theme is women in history, for this one it could be about a girl in history. The next prompt is to read a book about royals. There's so many books that have to do with monarchy and royals, so plenty to choose from. And the next prompt is women in politics, and I kind of feel like these two go together, but again, they can be different things, or you can count the same book for both, whatever. It's your reading challenge, so you can make this however you want. The next prompt is to read a book with LGBTQIA representation. So again, pretty self-explanatory. Read a book with multiple perspectives, so multiple POVs. All of them should be women. I think I have a few books on my own shelf that would work here. I have to double check and see if they are actually all women perspectives. I think they are. The next prompt is to read a book about a woman artist. Again, self-explanatory. The next prompt is to read a book about wives and mothers. So it could be about motherhood, it could be about marriage, it could be whatever, as long as it has to do with wives and mothers. The next prompt is to read a book about women in business. The next prompt is to read a book that is YA. You can double these up. So again, a YA book about royals, or a YA book about women at war, or a woman artist. You could use various prompts for the same book. The next prompt is to read a book about a woman author. And I do have a book for that I really do need to read, that if it doesn't happen this month, it will definitely happen in March, because I have the perfect book for this. So it's going to be on my TBR when I share that in a little while. Then the next prompt is to read about medieval women. There's some really great medieval fiction, so read about a medieval woman. The next prompt is probably the hardest prompt, I think, in this bingo board, and that is to read a book written by a woman using a male pen name. Like, I really liked the prompt for this, but again, you know, I don't always think ahead as far as like, well, what am I going to read for that? I'm going to have to do some research and see what books I can recommend for you guys, but I'm sure something exists here. The next prompt is to read a book about witches, historical witches to be specific. Then the next prompt is to read a book about female friendship. Then read a book about a generational saga. I love these. I love reading a story that spans generations because I think that's such an interesting way to learn about a historical time period, is to see like how things change over the course of a family. The next prompt is to read a book that is historical fantasy, another one of my favorite genres. I'm not a huge fantasy reader, but my favorite kind of fantasy to read typically is historical fantasy because I just love when a story takes a time period that I am familiar with, but then adds like a little bit of something extra to it, like a little bit of magic, or like maybe there's fae involved or vampires or something. So like I just really enjoy that. Then the next prompt is to read a book that has Indigenous representation. And then the next prompt is to read a book that has pink on the cover. For the free space, it's twofold. So if you want it to just be a free space, it can be. But if you want to participate in the group read, because it is March Through History, I plan my ARG book club selection to match. And so we're going to be reading The German Wife for the ARG book club and for the group read for the March Through History month readathon. This is by Kelly Rimmer. And this also would fit the wives and mothers prompt because it is about a woman who happens to be a wife. And it might even fit for women in science, but I haven't read this, so I don't know 100% if the wife is also a scientist. The husband is, though. The premise of this story is that this couple were living in Germany, and her husband, I know for sure, is a scientist, and he is forced into joining the Nazi Party to work for them. He may not have wanted to be a Nazi, he may not have believed in the ideology, but it was made clear that if he didn't join and lend his services, there would be consequences. So he becomes a Nazi and works for the Nazis during the war. After the war, there was this program in America called Operation Paperclip, where they sought out a lot of the scientists and people who were working for the Nazis, who were Nazis, and enlisted them to come work in America. So they moved to America live I think in Alabama or somewhere in the South, and they work for the government now in America. And they are doing their best to blend into society and hoping nobody knows anything about their past, except somebody finds out who they really are. There is some act of vengeance for this, and that is like basically everything I know about this book. I feel like it's going to be a really great book for discussion. I'm excited to read it. I've been like dying to pick this up since I bought it, so I'm excited to read it with all of you guys. So this is going to be our group book that we read during March Through History, and I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. So I am super excited about this readathon, you guys. Like I said, this is our 4th year. I did not know when I started it many years ago that this would be a continuing thing. I kind of thought at the time it was going to be a one-off. So the fact that you guys ask me every year, are we going to do it again, makes me just super happy. I'm so glad that you want to participate in this with me. I'm going to have the graphics on my Instagram so that you can use those in your stories or on your Instagram if you want to like mark off which books you've read and play bingo with me. I also use the hashtag March Through History, so if you want to use that hashtag during the readathon or when you're talking about the readathon, I would love that, because that way I can find your TBR and all of that stuff. So if you can use that on any social media. And I'm so excited to see what you guys decide to read for this. I would love to see your TBRs. I am going to be sharing my TBR in the coming weeks, and I'll talk more about recommendations probably in the coming weeks as well. I'm going to try to come up with some ideas for you guys going through my own bookshelves to see what I have, to see what I can recommend. Please let me know down below in the comments if you plan to participate in the readathon, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading, bye!